This is the Hagmann and Hagmann report for today. It is Tuesday, June 9th, 2015. We're coming to you live from the studios of the Hagmann and Hagmann report here in Northwest Pennsylvania. I'm Doug Hagmann at the helm with fellow investigator, researcher, and most importantly, my son, Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann and Hagmann report, America's premier father-son investigative and reporting team. Folks, our job is to bring you the news behind the headlines, the news that's hidden amid a funhouse of smoke and mirrors in the carnival that we call the corporate media. We do the headline and news triage so you don't have to. I want to say hello to all of the new listeners, all of the veteran listeners, people who have hung in with us from the beginning, people who have been with us from the very start. I want to say thank you so much. You've got no idea how much that means to us, and also for the new listeners, hearing from people from France, Germany, all across the world, New Zealand, Australia. I could just name a whole bunch of locations, but thank you for tuning in and thank you for listening. We really appreciate that. Our home base on the internet is hagmannandhagmann.com. Spell it all out. 2 N's on Hagmann. And from there, you can access us live on the right-hand side. And you can access all of our past shows. Now, to do that right at the moment, just click on at the very top of the page, click on the RSS feed. And that'll take you to a listing of all of our past shows. And also, more importantly, we want to push for this for a couple of reasons. Social networking sites. Now, look, I know that these social networking sites are nothing more than a data gathering tool by the feds. I get that. We have a presence on Facebook, and it's the Hagmann Hagmann report, and Joe and I both have our own pages as well. I'd urge everyone just to, friend us or like us or whatever the terminology is. I don't know. By the way, one thing I don't do is I don't communicate via Facebook. In other words, private messages don't get read. I don't answer them, and don't take it personally. I just don't do that. It's just not a good practice in my view. At any rate, we use properly. Social networking sites are interesting. You can do some interesting things with them. As investigators, we use them as an investigative tool, but when you use them, let's say on the other side of the equation, you can actually create trends, and you can force the hands of the power brokers in ways. You can play their own game a little bit and game the gamers, shall we say. So that's something that to mention. But social networking sites there, Twitter and Facebook. But most importantly, our original investigative reports are at hagmannandhagmann.com. And we're going to be talking about that shortly. At any rate, Joe, it's great to be in the studio today. It's an interesting day, to say the least. But
yeah, it is. And we had a great show last night. Anybody who missed it, I'd urge you to listen to it whenever you get the chance. We had Jim and Joanne Moriarty on. Great people. Who were, and their website is LibyanWarTheTruth.com. And they also have a DVD there on their site that's available for purchase, which we purchased last night after the show. And we'll let you know when we get that and when we watch it, how that is. But it was a great show last night.
Got a real nice email from them today.
Oh, good. Yeah, they were some of the last people to escape Libya. They were businessmen in Libya and were left for dead by the American government. And they talk about the miracles, 3 different miracles that happened to them that allowed them to be home. And ever since they've been home from Libya, their battle with the intelligence agencies has continued.
I'll say this. The experiences were, harrowing experiences. But one thing I don't do well with the feds here, with the FBI. I mean, when and regular listeners know this. I mean, I worked as an operational asset for the FBI and Department of Justice in New York and Pennsylvania State Police, but I actually had in our local FBI office, I had a little tiff, shall we say. It was more than a tiff. I went after an FBI agent, pushed him up against the wall up here in our office. And you know, again, I'm surprised. I mean, I have avoided jail many times, but this was from a threat to my family, and as a result of my work, and the guy saying, well, you know, hey, you signed on for it, too bad for you, and he just, the way he said it just kind of broke into a little bit of a physical altercation where, you know, no charges were filed. Let's just say that. How's that sound? But it just, you know, I know. So the reason I mentioned that really is thinking about Jim and Joanne, thinking about their situation when they come back home and they're getting gamed by the feds to such an extent where in the CIA, man, you know, our government should not do this to their citizens. I mean, don't you think, Joe? I mean, my goodness.
Yeah, and they gave a lot of insight as to how Libya was before the chaos broke out. And I think that was an eye-opener to a lot of people who didn't know how their situation was over there. The citizens of Libya were really taken care of by the nationalized oil production of the country. And I think last night they said 80 to 85% of the Libyan people were for Gaddafi. And, you know, the Western media, when it was time after, you know, Jim and Joanne both pointed out that Gaddafi donated millions to the Obama campaign and to his brother's campaign, or cousins, I'm sorry, his cousin's campaign in another country, but how quick they turned on him. And all that, they also talked about Hillary Clinton and her role and what has come from that, her ability to blackmail certain people on the political inside now due to what she knows about Benghazi and the Arab Spring. It was very eye-opening. It was a very good show.
Yeah. And in fact, I'm going to be listening to the show again today, or after tonight's program, because there's a lot of information in there that was just so important, and it does line up with our research findings as well. A few program notes, a few bits of housekeeping here. The prayer meeting for Paul McGuire's prayer meeting on Thursday, folks. If you people should be aware of this. If not, just go down to or go to Hagmann and click on. I think it's the second or third article down. Intercessory prayer, or prophecy prayer, and the future of America, meeting Paul McGuire. It's this Thursday, June 11th, 2015. Okay, the time has been changed from 7 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. All right, so make note of that time change. It's going to start a half hour earlier, and we urge everybody to attend that. That's really, you know, we've been with Paul McGuire in, I want to say prayer sessions, not these prayer sessions, but with prayer sessions and with speeches and, you know, presentations. And Paul McGuire is one guy that I would see over and over and over again. Just because you walk away with different information at different times. But please, folks, make note. It's changed. The time has changed to 6:30, and that's this Thursday. Standing on the promises of God. Okay. In addition to his recent, Paul's going to be giving an important new message in light of recent prophetic events and what's coming. Plus, he's going to be talking, standing on the promises of God. So please join Paul at the Woodland Hills Hilton Hotel in Woodland Hills, basically Los Angeles, at 6:30 on Thursday, June 11th. Another issue. Folks, you can't beat this with a stick, okay? If you go to what's the best way to do this? I suppose if you go to Hagmann Hagmann.com and click on our Facebook, the Hagmann Hagmann Facebook page, Right, Joe? I mean, Greg Jackson's book. It's free.
Yeah.
It's free.
Well, there's 1,000 copies available.
Okay.
Via for download.
Kindle editions or non-physical. Ebook thing.
And what you do, if you go on Facebook, if you go to the Hagmann Hagmann Facebook page, or if you go to Greg Jackson's Facebook page, you will see at the top of the, on our page, on the Hagmann and Hagmann, the link to do it, and you can go to Greg Jackson's page also to get the same, what's the program here? Book Grab, GRABBR, bookgrabber.com/books or /books.
Just go to the. That's why I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
Just go to the Hagmann Hagmann Facebook page, and because if you go to Greg, there's like a zillion Greg Jacksons. Greg, by the way, is 2 G's.
Yeah, GREGG.
Right, but Hagmann Hagmann Facebook page. Click on the 40 things entry there. You'll be able to download his book free, as long as you get in under the number that's out there, the 1,000 copies. You should have heard Greg trying to explain this to me today, to walk me through the whole process. But see, now, Joe, you saw on my computer, I got a problem where the news feeds aren't showing up, right?
Yeah, it looks like there's an issue with spacing there on the.
Not spacing. I mean, it's blind.
Right, it's not popping up. It looks like there's something either. It popped up fine for me. That's why I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't either. I must have hit a setting or something.
And if we can, a couple quick programming notes.
Sure.
We got a little bit of some updates on the programming for this week and next. We have Stan Deyo tonight.
That's right.
We're gonna have an in-studio guest on Thursday.
Shh! Don't tell anyone.
Next week, we have Russ Dizdar coming on Wednesday, and then follow that on Thursday. John from Pasadena. He is one of the people who work hard at HH Connections. He came on and talked about Hollywood a little while back. He's going to come on Thursday next week and get into we're going to do a full show on the what he found out about the occult in Hollywood, and we're going to be taking questions in the third hour of that show.
Man, that's something. The occult. The whole occult movement in Hollywood is something that I did not understand the vastness of how big this is and how insidious this is. Man alive, I'll tell you, in the historical aspect of it, of course, Hollywood, what a witch is used, we know it's a witch's wand made of, but the wood of a holly tree, and there you have it, hence the name. So that's good. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting rest of the week, and next week it's going to be great. Now, don't forget, folks, 3 o'clock or 12 or noon to 3 on Sunday, Flag Day, in front of the Supreme Court building. No speakers, no frills, just solemn prayer.
Yeah, we will be there.
That's right.
Looking forward to seeing anybody who's able to come out.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be a social gathering. It's going to be a very solemn event. No high-fiving. Basically, I mean, you know what I'm saying.
3 hours of prayer.
Yeah, no one's gonna speak. No one's gonna promote anything. It's just going to be. We are going to tap in to the dimensional power of God, and pray. And pray and pray and pray.
Yeah, and what Coach Dave said, if you can't be there, and I believe if you go to ptsalt.com,
saltandlightbrigade.org as well.
saltandlightbrigade.org, or Hagmann and Hagmann, there's a second article down, gives you the links as well, the Solemn Assembly. But if you can't be there and you want to be a part of it, he asks that you fast on Sunday for lunch.
And pray.
Yeah.
Yeah, and... we are going to make the trip simply for that prayer session. Nothing else. Nothing else. No meetings, no speaking, nothing. We're going to make that and pray, and very quietly pray. And if 10 people show up, great. If 100 people show up, great. If 1,000 people show up, great. the whole purpose is just prayer. That's it. And people are already saying, well, this is going to pass. The homosexual agenda will win and prevail in the Supreme Court. But you know what? Greg Jackson has a great video out, and his position on homosexual marriage is very simple. If it's against if it's unconstitutional and certainly not biblical, it's no law at all. And we need to exercise our civil disobedience and not recognize it. Certainly any judge or any presidential candidate, anybody in that venue must realize that this is no law at all, that the Supreme Court was not created as part of our government to make law. No. But Greg Jackson has a very, very, very simple solution, and the solution is it's no law, period. And that's, I don't know how much simpler that can be.
We have a lot to get into tonight. There is some things that you're going to get into. You have a publication that you just completed or put up on the TPA, and we have news on the TPP and TPA. But first, there's something that...
Go ahead.
I don't know, you wanted to get into the article that Judy did on Canada Free Press. You wanted to start? Or do you want to start with the...
You know what? Let's do this. Let's go to Judy's article first. Folks, if you go to CanadaFreePress.com, CanadaFreePress.com, and the second story down is, thanks to Fox, the devil will now have his very own TV show. And I'm sure listeners have heard about this. Fox they've got this Lucifer TV show. Maria Canise, the author of Prepare for Persecution, has sent me a lot of information about this show and about the glorification of Lucifer, and she's got a good handle on things in terms of, I looked over at the booth there, and Joe's gone. Did you just stage a walkout, or?
No, I shut the door.
Oh, all right. At any rate, the devil's taking to the airwaves apparently, and the compliments of Fox.
I haven't heard this until today, until we talked about it before the show briefly. There's going to be a new TV show.
Yep.
Called Lucifer.
Yep. Judy McLeod, the editor of Canada Free Press, does a great job in kind of taking this apart, saying it's not the glorification of the devil the American Family Association and 1 Million Moms should be objecting to in Fox's upcoming Lucifer TV show, but it's legitimization of the age-old Prince of Darkness. And if you think about that for a moment, okay, there's truth to that, of course.
She ties us to, she says, the Marxist garbled way of thinking, everything old is truly new again.
That's right.
From the legitimization through mass, already successful in having legitimized mass abortion and on their way to legitimization of same-sex marriage, they call their societal turnaround the new norm. To the Marxist garbled way of thinking, everything old is truly new again. If Christian parents raise their kids to believe that the devil is evil incarnate, the liberal left entertainment industry will now present him as a cool dude, a sort of 21st century Superman who's relocated from hell to the city of angels, where he's merely looking for a break, is what she writes.
I'm just going through a couple of things here in my notes. This, to me, goes far beyond what any... just imagine. Well, you don't have to imagine. We're seeing it play out right before our very eyes. It's really the glorification, and as Judy says, the legitimization of Lucifer on Fox. On Fox yet?
This is the network TV has been part of, she says, very well, she articulates very well how the media pushes this abortion, this homosexual, transgendered mess that we see now, but go out of their way to blaspheme the Lord and tear him down, as they try to, at least tearing down believers, marginalizing believers. Yet they're promoting this.
That's right.
Devil TV series. I mean, trying to make him appealing and something that people can relate to. Apparently, some kind of false savior.
And I think what we're seeing, I mean, to me, this is all part of the end of days. And again, I want to mention Maria Canese, the author of Prepare for Persecution, which, by the way, folks, if you haven't ordered that book, really a good addition to your library, especially at this time. It's really 2 books in one.
It's not that expensive either. It's
No,
very
it's not.
affordable.
And in fact, I'm just finishing up the foreword for her book. She should have that here any day now, but for the editions that will be coming up subsequently. But don't wait for that. You certainly get it as right away. Prepare for Persecution. It really it outlines the problems, and then it gives you the biblical solutions. And when you this is a book that you can actually give it to people, and you can wake them up and give them the answers at the same time, kind of like Greg Jackson's book as well. And I want to mention Greg Jackson's book, 40 Ways, that's available for free.
40 Things.
40 Things. Sorry.
40 Things to Teach Your Children Before.
Thanks. Keep me on track here. Yeah. And if you go to Hagmann and Hagmann report on Facebook, you can actually download it free from there. That'll take you to the link, Greg Jackson's link. And while you're there, just go ahead and friend up with Greg Jackson. Now, with respect to going back to Judy McLeod's article about Lucifer, okay, the TV series, I would suggest everyone read it and really understand what she's saying there, because she really brings out some good points. And of course, she points out where the 1 Million Moms, an offshoot of the AFA, American Family Association, they launched a petition asking Fox Network to cancel Lucifer from its TV lineup. And we get that. I mean, the petition had more than 626,000 signatures, and I mean, it's really a movement to stop this. And I believe that to bring this to bring a series like this into the lineup is, as you said, Joe. I mean, there's blasphemy, and then there's subtleties. This is actually a cultural subtlety to me, and this will appeal to the younger generation, much like the vampire series have, and the other popular witches and such. This is dangerous stuff, and we need to get rid of it. There's no real useful. There's nothing useful. I mean,
well, she writes in here, rerouting children back to the real thing is a loss when God already has been made irrelevant.
There you go.
In a world where prayers are banned at school, indifference to the sensibilities of those with allegiance to other religions, and where references to God are banned from valedictorian speeches at graduation.
That's right. Now, if you, and I would urge anyone with a social media account certainly to spread Judy's article around, because I think, and we're not pimping articles here. It's just getting the word out. Because as you said, Joe, you didn't even realize this was in the lineup.
Apparently, right? It starts in 2016. This show.
No, brainchild. I mean, really, who thought of this, right? Which brings me to On Canon Free Press too. The story above that one is the one I wrote, finished up today. The Rising of the Beast. TPP is the planned communist utopian dream. Now, a couple of things before we get into this real quick. This appears on Hagmann and Hagmann.com, and also CanonFreePress.com. At CanonFreePress.com, with both Judy's article and this article. Go ahead and make a comment. And the reason I say this, and I said this the last time, and I'm going to say this again, what the search engines are doing is, I can't prove this. I mean, I can barely operate a computer, let alone prove something forensically on a digital level. But what these search engines are doing, for example, if you are against the TPP or anything, if you're against anything Obama or anything Marxist or anything that doesn't conform to the political ideology that's being pushed upon us today, what they're doing is they're messing with the stats. They're messing with the message. They're making it more difficult for search engines, or they're having the search engines push articles like this way down, and you have to dig to find them. Now, there's a way around this that we found, and I was talking with a couple of people, and I don't know how this works. I don't claim to know how it works, but when you comment, whether it's through Discuss or Discuss or whatever the comment form thing would be, it elevates the relevancy of the article. Now, this is how it was explained to me. It elevates the relevancy of the article and also the exposure. So it raises the article in the search engines. And so the people who are manually trying to bury these articles are having a harder time doing it. And the algorithms that are working these to bury these are having to work overtime to bury the articles. So by commenting or clicking on the article, commenting, it does raise. Well, clicking on just won't do it. It used to be you can click on the article and every click, for example, registers somehow, and but it doesn't work anymore that way for articles of this nature. So please, if you want to just even comment saying, "Hey, your article, boy, that really was a waste of space," or whatever, it doesn't matter. Or if you just say, shared with somebody. It doesn't matter on any of the articles you agree with. And this, it's my understanding, this is across the board on all sites, with the exception of the protected ones. But I'm talking about the social conservative sites. So just keep that in mind. But back to the topic at hand. The TPP and the TPA, just very quickly, and then Joe, you can continue. But a lot of people were confusing the TPP and the TPA, and I know, ladies and gentlemen, you folks don't. But in my view, anyway, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, when we did, and I've done probably, I don't know, maybe 80 hours of research on this, and Joe, I know you've done probably the equivalent thereof. It's been around since 2005, and the article goes into the history of the TPP.
Yeah, they've been negotiating it now for 6 years at least, and that is from a article from the Hill today, and it says, "Fast talk from the fast track salesman. President Obama's GOP salesmen are telling fellow House members that Fast Track Trade Promotion Authority will constrain the president to do what Congress wants when he negotiates the Trans-Pacific Partnership."
That's bull.
Right.
See, that is absolute bull.
In the next
hockey.
line, it says, "Sounds reassuring, but there is one problem. It's just not true."
No.
Pointing to the negotiating objectives, the Senate-approved bill lays out House Majority Whip Steve Scalise says that the TPA makes the president follow dozens of strict objectives in his negotiation so that your priorities come first, not his. But it says, first, let's be clear, the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations have been underway for 6 years. According to the U.S. Trade Representative, they are in the end game and will be wrapped up once the TPA is approved. Scalise and company are a little late setting objectives for negotiations that have already taken place. More importantly, if you look at the language of the TPA bill, you will see the claim that the TPA makes the president follow dozens of strict objectives is transparently false.
Right. Yeah, in fact, Ted Cruz, presidential candidate Ted Cruz, it doesn't matter what you think of the guy. If you like him, if you don't, it doesn't matter to me. But he's a proponent of the TPA, but he's against the TPP. But he's saying, at least his camp is saying, well, if you pass it, see the TPAs, he's using what you just said as the reason for being in favor of the TPA, but it's nonsense. Well, let me explain very quickly about the Trade Promotion Authority, or the TPA. That was created under the Nixon administration, and it was Nixon and Kissinger who really, I don't want to say thought this up, but really created the TPA. So think about that, Nixon and Kissinger. How could you go wrong? This was supposed to be a temporary, temporary transfer of authority from Congress to the President, giving the President the power and authority to negotiate international agreements. It was first called Fast Track Negotiating Authority. And it prohibits Congress from amending or filibustering any trade deal created by the President. It was first written into the Trade Act of 1974. Now, there's some very interesting information about how this has been used. And, Joe, you were talking, I was surprised that you knew about this. It's been, you knew to the extent of this. Fast Track is such an extreme power grab that in the past 21 years, Congress has only allowed it to go into effect for a total of 5 years. Why? Well, because under the U.S. Constitution, Congress is supposed to write the laws and set trade policy for 200 years. These key checks and balances helped ensure that no one branch of government had too much power. But here we see today Congress giving all of the authority to Obama. Now, folks, tell me, what reason, sensible, sane, rational reason, can you see John Boehner, whatever you want to call the guy, in Friends, saying, yeah, okay, here you go, Barry, go ahead. We're going to give you the power. We're going to put all the power in your corner. Well, all right. Joe and I were talking about this before the show. As investigators, think back to those FBI files that were found in the West Wing of the White House, or the residence of the White House during the Clinton administration. You don't think some of this stuff's coming into play today? If you don't know what I'm talking about, missing personnel files, FBI files, were found under the control of the Clintons in the White House, and they were missing for a couple of years. I use that only as an example because I believe that within those files, or even today, there's a dossier on everyone in power, every lawmaker, and I truly believe that their family, or if they're not under threat, certainly their family is. And it depends upon the individual in power what they will use. For example, if someone threatens you, for example, you, whoever is listening, you might say, "Well, go ahead and threaten me. I can take it." But perhaps they're threatening to reveal something in your past that might be a little bit iffy, or something that if it would be made known, maybe you'd lose your job, and maybe you really need your job. Now, I'm not excusing the behavior. I'm just explaining it. Or, even worse, maybe, if you've got children or grandchildren. Did you ever think about the psychological effects of a surveillance photograph in the mail of your 3 or 4 or 5 or 6-year-old grandchild? Open your mail, and in the envelope is a surveillance photograph with no explanation. Let's say of one of your grandchildren. In the back of your mind, what might you be thinking? And I know the bravado associated with that. Well, I would go to bat and go to war over this, but we're talking about Washington, D.C., and we're talking about a lot of mushy people in Washington, D.C. But I think that there's a lot of blackmail going on. But getting back to the TPA, just very quickly, fast track, as it used to be called, has only been used 16 times in the history of our country. And that brought in NAFTA. It brought in the WTO. And hundreds of less controversial U.S. trade agreements have been implemented without resorting to fast track. But, which, by the way, that shows that this procedure is not needed to approve trade agreements. But it allowed the executive branch to unilaterally select partner countries for trade pacts, decide the agreement's contents, then negotiate and sign agreements all before Congress had a vote on the matter. That's what TPA does, or fast-tracking does. It disallows congressional oversight, disallows congressional review or amendments. Folks, this is a banana republic tyranny at the very least. And it's just not Obama. I mean, it was from Nixon forward. Look at what George H.W. Bush did. And he invoked the fast track. And guess who was associated with his presidency? Kissinger. As well as his son, George W. Bush. Kissinger, Carter, Kissinger. Look at the Panama Canal Treaty. Look what happened with Carter and the Panama Canal. We gave it to China, basically. Sold it to China. So the TPA is bad for our country. It's just bad. It's unconstitutional. But the terminology, what the TPA is spelled out in the article, and what the TPP is, as best we know it. And Joe, you can chime in on this. 29 chapters, we believe it is. Some 6,000 pages, roughly.
That I'm unsure of.
Okay. Well,
but I believe the intellectual, intellectual property chapter, or it had the first word was intellectual, was chapter 19, I believe. So, yeah, there are quite a few.
Interesting number, by the way. Yeah, so all of this, but in my view, and based on our research collectively, we do believe not only is the Trans-Pacific Partnership a Trojan horse, in fact it is, we believe that, the Trojan horse that will backdoor things like SOPA, PIPA, ACTA, the SPP, the North American Union Internet Regulation, even Obamacare. That's included within the framework of the TPP. And just today, Drudge had admitted that. And as you pointed out, intellectual property issues, trademarks, patents is going to change the Internet. But I certainly believe, and we believe, that this is the final building block of the New World Order talked about by George H.W. Bush and others before and after. And as I put it here, we're looking at a modern-day version of Plato's Republic. And Paul McGuire spoke about this so often and has written about it in his books. It's the synthesis of the beliefs of Plato, Karl Marx, and Adolf Hitler. You're talking about the Republic, the Communist Manifesto, and National Socialism. It's a combination thereof. And in my view, it's filtered and refined through the work of the Fabian socialists and those of like minds. That's what this is all about. And I make an appeal in this article, for the sake of our nation, or the fate of our nation, and the sake of our children and future generations. We've got to somehow stop this or make our voices known. Yes, prayer. And some people are going to say, well, it's way too late. But regardless, is it not our duty to try?
Yeah.
We've got to say no.
And I want to. This is kind of a little off topic, but you mentioned Plato. My cell phone broke a while back, like a month ago, or I don't know, a little while back, and I got an iPhone 6, part of an upgrade we have with our contract. I was available for upgrade, so I got this iPhone 6, and they have an iBooks app on here.
Right.
And there's books you can download for free, And I don't know if you ever heard of the book Laws, written by Plato. I've been reading that, and it's very interesting. It's free on the ebook or iBooks thing. So
yeah,
and just a couple other books I downloaded for free: The Writings of Thomas Jefferson, The Mysteries of Freemason by William Morgan. He was a Freemason who was killed in the 1800s in upstate New York. Laws by Plato. Plato's The Republic.
Oh yeah, The Republic. That should be read by everybody, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of good historical free books there, and I think it's pretty neat because I've been reading them on my phone, and the last iPhone I had, I don't know if it had that option or not, but this is something that's built in there in this new one, so take advantage of that if you have the ability.
What's it called?
It's called Laws.
No, I mean, what's the application?
iBooks.
iBooks.
Yeah, right. It's real handy.
Interesting. All right. If I can digress just one moment here.
Go for it.
Yeah. Folks, I love dogs. I really do. And, of course, we brought our studio dog. And I've been bringing my dog to the studio every day. And what a doll she is. She's a part Australian Shepherd, part cattle dog. There was an article that came out in Newsmax. I just want to briefly reference this today. Because sometimes we need to smile. Sometimes we need that diversion. And even though you might be a cat person or a dog person, not a dog person, just bear with me here. The title of the article is, Your Dog Really Is Listening to You. This according to a study. While people have long believed their dogs understand what they're saying, a study suggests that they are processing the meaning and emotion of words in a human-like way. Now, I've seen this personally with our dog, my dog. She could tell when I'm upset or angry. I mean, she can actually tell, and she does not like it when I get upset. And she'll do things, and I'll watch her do things that are out of the norm. But anyway, this research has shown that dogs respond to different parts of human speech. But what I found interesting is that includes the actual content, not just the emotional tone, but the content. Her team, the findings of this scientist, let's see here. The canine brain, the dog's brain, according to this researcher. The study found dogs are able to process multiple components of human speech all at once. What's more, their brains are human-like in the way they distinguish the information in words from the emotional tone. Now, that doesn't mean dogs actually understand all the words people say, but they do. But the findings do suggest that dogs may process speech components in a way that's very, very much compatible or comparable with humans. I thought that was so interesting, and obviously the article says no. Dogs are not going to read books or compose sonnets. Well, says you. My dog might. I'm trying to get her to read the Paul McGuire's books. Anyway, and Steve Quayle's books, but they can take quite a bit out of what we're saying. Our voices, the inflection, the content, they're picking up, or they pick up on certain sounds that have meaning for them, and the tenor of what we're saying. It's a testament to their abilities as sentient beings. Give your dog a hug. If you have a dog, give your dog a hug. And Karma, I just want to say hello to Karma out there. And others. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the names here. The boards in my other office of our listeners with dogs. But anyway, I thought that was a fascinating article on Newsmax. Just to kind of take a side step away from the hard news, get into some things that make you smile a little bit, and know that dogs are truly, indeed, our best friends at times, and their love is unconditional. So give your dogs a hug for us. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. And Yankee, of course, from Canada Free Press, the official dog of Canada Free Press, Yankee, hello to him. I'm sorry. Anyway, Joe, I had to make that sidestep there. I thought that was important because, sometimes you get too heavy in this gloom and doom, and which is real. So we have to just put a smile on our face.
And we're about 15 minutes out from the top of the hour. Next hour, Stan Deyo will be joining us as he does on every Tuesday for the hour. If you have any questions, send an email to studio@hagmannandhagmann.com. Spell that all out, and we will ask him. But I wanted to hit a few news pieces first. Obama lawyers asked secret court to ignore public court's decision on spying. The Obama administration asked a secret surveillance court to ignore a federal court that found bulk surveillance illegal and to once again grant the National Security Agency the power to collect the phone records of millions of Americans for 6 months. The legal request, filed nearly 4 months after Obama vowed to sign a new law banning precisely the bulk collection he asked the secret court to approve, also suggests that the administration may not necessarily comply with any potential court order demanding that the collection stop. U.S. officials confirmed last week that they would ask the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, better known as the FISA Court, a panel that meets in secretive in a step in the surveillance process, and thus far has only ever had the government argue before it to turn the domestic bulk collection Spingot back on.
The spigot. I'm sorry.
That's a typo.
You got it.
Justice Department.
I thought, what the heck is that word?
The Justice Department National Security Chief John A. Carlin cited a 6-month transition period provided in the USA Freedom Act, passed by the Senate last week to ban the bulk collection, as a reason to permit an orderly transition of the NSA's domestic dragnet. Carlin did not address whether the transition clause of the Freedom Act still applies now that a congressional deadlock met the program shutdown on May 31st, but Carlin asked the FISA court to set aside a landmark decision by the Second Circuit Court of Appeals decided on May 7th. The appeals court ruled that the government had erroneously interpreted the Patriot Act's authorization of data collection as relevant to ongoing investigation to permit bulk collection. It goes on to state that this court may certainly consider ACLU versus Clapper as part of its evaluation of the government's application, but the Second Circuit rulings do not constitute controlling the president for this court. Carlin wrote in a June 2nd application. Instead, the government asked the court to rely on its own body, once secret precedent stretching back to 2006, where Carlin said the better interpretation of the statute. So basically, the president is asking this secret court, this FISA court, to set aside the bulk surveillance denial rulings of the Second Circuit Federal Court, and ignore those decisions.
That's right.
And to continue their bulk spying efforts. You can't even make this stuff up. It's
that's ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous. People who are really compassionate toward the, and I've heard this so much. People are compassionate toward the young children. Remember Glenn Beck talking about the humanitarian crisis on the southern border, and we should really have a heart for these young people, these unaccompanied minors who were put on trains and whatever to be brought up here to this country. I understand what he was saying, but here's the other side of that. And this is nothing. I'm not slamming. Don't get me wrong. I'm not slamming Glenn Beck. I'm addressing a situation here that needs to be addressed. People, and especially progressive or Marxists, better name for them, are saying, well, we have to. These are children, young people, that we have to have compassion for, these illegal immigrants. Well, let me tell you something. The description or the classification of illegal immigrants, children, unaccompanied minors, is below 21 years of age. Well, it's interesting because there was a situation happened here in a couple of days ago in Suffolk County, New York, where a New York girl was just savagely raped by teen gangsters from El Salvador, members of the MS-13 gang. Now, I'm not going to get into what they did to this girl. I'm just not going to do that. It's Suffolk County, Brentwood Country Club in Brentwood, New York. This is not Suffolk County, by the way, is that's a pretty good county out there in Long Island. Many of the actors and popular, very famous people live in Suffolk County. But and Brentwood Country Club is pretty high class. But 3 MS-13 gang members from El Salvador forced a 16-year-old New York girl into the woods near the Brentwood golf course. 2 of them raped her and did other things, while the 3rd kept the watch.
I saw this.
Okay. Yeah. And the reason I bring this up is what's happening here is the federal government is actually flying these unaccompanied minors into the country. They're implementing it. Obama, the renegade in chief. Never going to call him the president, but the renegade in chief, his administration implemented the program to fly into this country at our expense unaccompanied minors from Central American countries of Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. If the children under 21 have a parent legally residing here in the United States. Now think about that for a moment. Now, WorldNet Daily, I think this was on, or
there was a couple places that
ran. Yeah, okay. Now, there's no confirmation that these individuals were brought here as part of that particular program. However, once they were here, they were treated as if they were and were subjected to the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, as it's known. Bottom line, we are bringing criminals into this country, gang members, and sheltering them under this DACA ruling, or this DACA initiative. And what they're doing, the amnesty pushers, the people who are behind this are not reporting. Anytime something like this happens, they're burying this so far that they won't even report on this. But what's happening here are too many gang members, MS-13 and other gangs, especially from the countries I named in Central America, are making it all across the country. We are flying these people into this country, and they are ripping and tearing asunder the various families. Imagine this girl, their family, what she went through, and the family's going through, and these rapists, these savages, 18, 17 years old. One was 18, and the other 2 were 17 years old. Now, Joel Escobar. That's the only name I can pronounce. I'm not going to try to pronounce the other 2. But look, if you think this is by accident, what's taking place, it's not. And as I mentioned in the article at Canada Free Press and HagmannHagmann.com about the TPP, expect the doors to be even wider open on immigration, unfettered immigration, because part of the TPP involves the North American Union, which is the merger of really Mexico and Central American countries with Canada and Mexico. We're going to become one regional force, this North American Union. Trust me on this. This is not going to be good for anybody, and yet this is happening. So I wanted to bring that story out because no other media no other corporate captive media would bring this out. So it's very important to understand what's going on here. And conservative estimates suggest that of the multitudes of children, unaccompanied minors under 21, at least 65% are gang or gang-related or have gang ties, either directly or at the periphery. And they're flying these children, in quotation marks, all across the United States. So, on our dime.
It's crazy. Some of the stats and figures of it, they talked about the number of MS-13 gang members that have been brought into this country. Remember that when we used to go to New York City, sometimes we'd stay in Hazleton. You remember that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yesterday I saw an article where they said in the last 5 or 10 years the illegal immigrant population has went from 5% to 37% there. Something crazy like that, or 39%.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because when we were there, we
did have some cases there.
A lot of, and I would say the majority of the cases we had there were immigrants, illegal or otherwise.
I remember not a lot of people they didn't speak English.
That's right.
Hard to get information on someone because they were not actually here in the U.S.
Had to find translators. You know, what a nightmare that was. It was crazy. And then once you get into the 5 boroughs, especially Brooklyn and Queens, oh my word, it was like being in a different country.
Yeah. To those in the audience, never walk around New York City with my dad, especially when he's having a bad day, right?
well, you know, when you I'm not going to even.
I think we told this story before, but remember that Chinese guy? We worked in Casino Boulevard in Queens. We were doing surveillance, and we had to verify a address, and this person lived there. And after I believe it was a day and a half of trying to find this guy, we got an address and went into this apartment complex, knocked on the door, and like 5 Chinese-speaking
5 Chinamen. Yeah, 5 Chinamen.
Answered the door in their underwear.
In their tidy whities.
In their white, tiny underwear. And nobody spoke English.
And everyone had a bowl, and this is not racist.
Yeah, they had a bowl of rice.
Everyone had a bowl of rice.
And one guy had a cell phone, and he handed it to my dad, and it was all in Chinese.
And I'm not good with it.
He's just like, I'm done, and I'm leaving.
Yeah. I'm not good with regular cell phones. And he handed me the cell phone, and it was all in Chinese. Like, really? What am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah, that was funny. I mean, New York City was rough. I remember the bullet holes in the lobby window or the lobby glass that was down there.
Oh yeah.
But no, it was that was an experience working in New York City. A whole lot of nations represented out there. We only have a few minutes before the break, but in the third hour we'll get into this. The NRA, the Washington Examiner posted a story. NRA. Gun blogs, videos, web forums threatened by new Obama regulation.
This is important.
Commonly used in unregulated internet discussions about videos about guns and ammo could be closed down under rules proposed by the State Department according to a gag order on firearm-related speech, the National Rifle Association is warning. In updating regulations governing international arms sales, state is demanding that anyone who puts technical details about arms and ammo on the web first get the okay from the federal government or face a fine up to $1 million or 20 years in jail. According to the NRA, that would include blogs, web forums discussing technical details of common guns and ammunitions, the type of info gun owners and ammo reloaders trade all of the time. Gunsmiths, manufacturers, reloaders, and do-it-yourselfers could all find themselves muzzled under the rule and unable to distribute or obtain the information they rely on to conduct these activities, said the NRA in a blog posting. The latest regulatory assault, published on June 3rd issue of Federal Register, is as much an affront to the First Amendment as it is to the Second, warned the NRA's lobbying shop. Your action is urgently needed to ensure that the online blogs, videos, and web forums devoted to technical aspects of firearms and ammunition do not become subject to prior review by State Department bureaucrats before they can be published. It added, but we'll get on into that more.
But you know, if you think that that's conspiracy theory and if that's hyperbole,
just in the Federal Register.
Well, right. But people will say, well, you know, that's there's a lot of things on the Federal Register that are not enforced, but. There's a guy, remember the Boston Marathon bombing, of course. There's a guy that merely cleared his history, his browser's history, Google Chrome. What he did was he deleted his history, and now he's been charged with obstruction of justice. Okay? I mean, think about that.
Once a week, because I mean...
look, I don't know the particulars of the case, but what this guy did was, and I can't even pronounce his name, Matanoff, I guess is his last name, but he deleted a large amount of information from his Google Chrome Internet cache, and that included references to, well, the video of the suspected bombers, but just the mere fact that he deleted his history. Now he's got an obstruction of justice charge by the United States. And this is not after getting a subpoena or being notified of an investigation. No. This was done after the bombing. Period. So it wasn't. And yet Hillary Clinton, hey, she's walking around with a what? She deleted
a server.
Yeah,
destroyed a server,
basically. So
with
go
that,
figure.
We're going to go to our commercial break. We're going to Hagmann Hagmann report. Every Tuesday, second hour, we are joined by Stan Deyo, and he is with us tonight. His website is standeyo.com. Click on that. Go to his website, bookmark it for updated information. And every time he's on, go to the right of his website to the microphone under his recent interviews. You'll see show images. Click on that show images page, and you can follow along with what Stan is talking about and the images he puts up on his website, from the earthquakes to tracking the latest temperatures, from the sea surface temperatures to the ocean, and all the things we get into. That's on the show images link on standeyo.com. Stan, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be back, guys. Good to see we all made it through another week.
Yes. And Stan, you're looking rather dapper tonight. No,
yes.
I didn't mean.
How's that?
I didn't mean to throw you off there. No, I was just teasing you. You always look dapper. We actually recorded your appearance on. It just escaped me here. Your recent television appearance. We recorded that on the.
With Prophecy Watchers.
Yeah, exactly, and you look wonderful, folks. If you haven't had a chance to do that, I believe there's a link to that. But anyway, it was a great interview. You look great as usual, and a lot of great information. But glad to have you on today.
Well, thank you. It's been an interesting week. We move a little bit closer every day, it seems like, to the collapse of the world as we know it. I was just looking at an article that I put up on the website, up on the show images page today, about the Supreme Court agreeing with Obama that they don't have to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, because Obama and Shimon Peres and the Vatican and a number of other entities in the world all want to look at Jerusalem as an international city-state, like the Vatican is, so that right now that the nation of Israel has no real jurisdiction over Jerusalem because it's an international city. Now, if they keep doing this nonsense, what it means is they are further partitioning, dividing Israel. And I marvel at this. I mean, how can Israel have any say about what's going on in the Temple Mount, which is in Jerusalem, especially the old city of Jerusalem, if they do not have jurisdiction over Jerusalem? And, of course, Shimon Peres has been kissed up to the Pope for a number of months now. You can click on it, read the article. There's a bunch of articles on Google News links, but it just tells you that we're one step closer this week to, dividing Israel, which may mean the United States is divided physically as a punishment for it. I don't know. But have a look.
Yeah.
That's what's been on my radar this week.
It was the Supreme Court gave the president the power to declare what is a nation or what is a territory or city. Who are they to give? Who are we, and who are the Supreme Court to give this power to the president of this country?
See, that stemmed from a passport case. It's my understanding that the Supreme Court heard the argument, and it was a 6-3 decision in favor. Against Israel, I suppose.
Was it specific to Israel?
In the context, in this case, it was. Yeah.
Okay.
But
there was a guy that, they were issuing passports to children or people born in Jerusalem. They started issuing U.S. passports that said, country of origin Jerusalem, instead of Israel.
Right.
And so that you can see that our State Department is just, that's none of their, that's crazy.
It is. And, it doesn't surprise me, but it saddens me that we haven't had anyone in the Oval Office with the temerity to move our embassy to Jerusalem and to say, you know what, we recognize this as a capital of Israel, as it should be. And even some of the Israelites are have a problem with that. And of course, it's then you get into the self-hating Jews, and oh man, yeah, you're right. I mean, so the division that we're causing, I mean, that we recognize that division. So, in my view, based on Genesis, the instructions or the admonition in Genesis, that in fact we will suffer the consequences from further dividing that country. Is that what you take out of it? Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that, and it's amazing to me that we can sit here and watch our churches be become instruments of the state, and the messages coming from the pulpit are more on social, gospels rather than the actual teaching of Scripture and salvation, through Jesus. And I shake my head. We've become enemies of the new state by being Christian or Jewish.
Yeah. It's
it get worse.
Yeah. Yep.
But
hey,
you're right.
Fox can have a series named Lucifer, and everyone's happy. It's a crazy world.
I know.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, he's badly done by. He's going to step down, and what's going to be he's tired of living and ruling in hell, so he's going to come and help the L.A. Police Department or something. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah, it was some ridiculous a theme, plot, whatever you want to call it, but to have that even in consideration, I mean, it shows that our moral compass has been not just broken but smashed, and man, that's crazy. But wow.
Yeah, I listened on the weather conditions here. I put up the current El Nino conditions as posted by NOAA yesterday. That's the current map. And that's on the top row right-hand side of the show images tonight. The situation seems to me to be getting worse up off of the Washington, Oregon coast, a really bright red, rapidly heating, anomalous heating of the sea surface. And they're saying, Holly showed me on this, she got a forecast for the next few months for the condition in the United States as far as rain or drought. And where we are, we're going to see a wet June like we had in May. I'm looking at this water heating up and boiling up moisture up there off it could be off the Washington and Oregon and British Columbia coast area. You can see how that will interact with the cold streams coming down from Canada and produce rain or tornadoes and hailstorms down across the United States in a swath. And then there's that one that's still persisting on the Baja. It's heating off the Baja, the very tip of it, and thus putting warm, moist air moving across the United States, across Texas, Arkansas, and right on up toward New York. And that's interacting with cooler streams from the Canadian prevailing winds. Holly was showing me also a photo that a storm chaser put up here from, I guess a week or so ago here in Colorado. We had a huge anvil cloud form. And I was looking at it on a computer, and she said, "See the tornadoes?" And I said, "What tornadoes?" The picture was so wide angle that you know how long a tornado spout looks underneath a cloud. Well, in this picture, it was like maybe an eighth of an inch tall, and 8 inches was the height of the storm cloud, the big anvil cloud that she photographed. You could almost not even see the tornadoes; they were scale-wise so small. And you can see up in the middle of this amble cloud, blue-green, those kind of things you hate to see because that means hail. And fortunately, it missed us here in Pueblo West, but in other part of Colorado, they got pounded with it. And, it just tells you that this is extreme weather we're looking at. Very anomalous, very unusual, unique weather conditions this summer across the United States. And I think it will continue to get more interesting in the Chinese sense of the word as this year progresses with this weird semi sort of big El Nino.
That's not, that's not good news when you consider the economic damage, the crops and everything, the damage from the storms in addition to the crops and my goodness, the entire upset of the delicate economic ecosystem that we've got. So, my goodness.
Holly was telling me the other day that the increase in the bird flu is, impacting egg supplies, and we'll be seeing that as an effect as well. Our price of eggs will go up because they're getting to be rather scarce that aren't quarantined from, the bird flu.
Stan, I mean, we got a couple of emails wanting us to ask you, since you bring that up, about the bird flu. From is it real to what are we looking at here? I guess with the bird flu.
We were talking about a egg shortage in Texas last week. There are increasing stories of this avian flu and the amount. 30-40 million birds, something crazy like that.
And what are they doing with the birds that are being destroyed or have been or dead? Or
I don't know, but I do think that the peculiar weather, let's say, that we're having around the planet, but particularly here at home, does make animal species more susceptible to viruses and bacterial infections. Their immune systems are compromised by unusual behavior in the weather. Even trees. This season we've had a quick freeze here in Colorado that was unseasonal, untimely, and we think it's killed two of our trees out in the orchard because the sap was rising because we had early heat this year, anomalous heating. Then we had a snap freeze that told the trees, "Oh, don't you do that! Stop the sap flowing." And it killed two of our trees, and a lot of other people have lost more trees than that. But so even the vegetation is being upset by the anomalous weather we're having, the heating, cooling, storming, drought, electrical storms, flooding. And this is going to be a year with a lot of that in the States. So the avian flu, to me, I'm expecting things to hit the human population, more diseases there, and since we're getting tuberculosis across the border. Say again? Yeah, Holly was saying it's extreme TB, really nasty. It's crossed the border now with the illegal traffic coming in. With this anomalous weather and people being out and around each other, we could see a TB outbreak, extreme TB outbreak in this country right now. So put that in your thing, okay, and be cautious.
Well, that case of extreme TB, as it was reported, this person came from India to Chicago, and then reportedly traveled to Missouri and Tennessee, or I believe those were the two states, and then it was hospitalized. Really?
That's only one case.
Okay.
But, there's a reason that the governments of the world have for some time been requiring TB scanning and testing of people wanting to immigrate from one country to another. In Australia, we had to do that, going there. People coming and going from Australia had to do that because of the threat of TB, how bad it is. And, this one from India traveled around, in the areas that he traveled. There are also illegals from our southern and northern borders that are congregating in these areas. and health conditions being what they are, that will spread if they didn't catch that guy in time. Just normal TB comes in with people illegally entering the country and haven't been screened for TB. It's a nasty, nasty disease.
Huh. Wow. And an expensive one, according to the information that we got, the articles and what have you, especially the extreme TB. All right. So we probably should be expecting more of this. Whatever happened, since we're on the subject, whatever happened to the children? Remember, right after the information about the illegals, the children coming into this country, we had this mystery illness of the children, and then we didn't hear anything more about it. And then we had other illnesses.
Yeah, I mean, there's flesh-eating bacteria in Florida. There's this huge bird flu. There's this new, what was that TB you guys were talking about? That
right, extreme TB.
Yeah, that's been brought into the U.S. It seems like there's an uptick in these. It's almost like they're experimenting with bioagents. What it seems to me,
it could be that, but it could also be simply that the changes in solar radiation densities. We're having a lot more flares and coronal mass ejections this year, and the weather, of course, is tied to the electromagnetic fields, the magnetic fields of Earth and the Sun interacting. And we do know from the French study that our immune systems are compromised when we have these terrible weather conditions which relate to sunspot activity and solar activity of other kinds. So to me, I think we're seeing that as part of a natural, or maybe judgment, but a natural progress from the sun itself interacting with us in a dramatic fashion, a different fashion. And we know that weather is anomalous now on Earth. So, it could be that people are playing around with these bioweapons, but also the practical side of it is that we could just be seeing lowered immunities in the community, and some of these things that were dormant are now, being able to grab us because we don't have the immune system, or at least not a good one.
We see
people
how
taking so many antibiotics. Sorry.
Yeah. No. It's interesting. We see how all of this kind of connects together. And you're right about the overuse of antibiotics and the improper use. I mean, when the doctor tells you to take them all and finish them, you should do that. Obviously, of course.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe you can give me some insight on this, Stan. The probiotics versus antibiotics. We see a huge increase in probiotic, whether it's in the food or, even one of our partners, Nature Boxes, has this new probiotics mix. I see it all over the place. These different probiotic pills from vitamins to, they're in yogurts. What exactly does probiotics do? I know it's a bacteria, but it's a good bacteria, and does that offset the antibiotic?
Boy, a number of people have suggested that it does work. Pastor Lindsey Williams, a friend of ours, has also said that as well. I haven't tried it myself, and I would just be one person trying it, one person's testimony. But there are a lot of articles on the internet about this, the probiotics, and I don't know how to answer it. I'm not really qualified. I mean, there are certainly a number of doctors commenting on whether it's a hype or whether it's a help. But I would suggest that people just go on to the internet and see, first of all, the discussions of probiotics and whether they might or might not be of good value. And if you're going to do them, if you're going to buy them, try to find out which ones are gluten-free. They've found that gluten has been found in some of the probiotic capsules. So, it's like anything else. It's new. You've got to give it a while to be analyzed by people that you can trust, if you can, in the medical community.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
I've been hearing good things about it, so I don't know. I can't comment one way or the other.
Well, getting back to your show images page, if we can here, I found a couple of well, it's always interesting, but You've got your whole second line, second row is dedicated to earthquakes.
Earthquake hazard map.
Yeah. What's up with the earthquake hazard map of the lower 48? It almost, are we looking at something that could be somewhat consistent with the anomalous temperature map, or is it different? I mean, it just seems like, meh, or is there no relation?
Well, there may be some relation. I don't know the correlation would be high, but I see where you're going with that, because the hazard map for extreme earthquake hazards is rather big up around Washington State, and then it follows down the coastline to California, and Southern California and the Baja are extreme earthquake movement sensitive areas. This is a new map, by the way, that USGS put out this year. So you can see, like, over Oklahoma City in that area, that's a very hazardous area for earthquakes, according to the new USGS map. Of course, the New Madrid as well. And they're showing a partial linkage between the Oklahoma City region earthquakes and the New Madrid earthquakes. You can see how the green fields on the outer edge of probabilities is connecting those two fields, and one over to the Appalachians and one over into southern South Carolina, I think. But they're kind of letting you know that New Madrid and the Oklahoma quakes are semi-connected, which I've been talking about for 2 years now. Then noticing the little tiny earthquakes along a little fracture zone that goes through Arkansas from the southern tip of the New Madrid right over to Oklahoma City. And that's on the edge of the craton, the stable area of the lower Canadian and upper 48 states, where you don't normally get earthquakes. It's right on the border to the area where the craton plate is unstable and prone to earthquakes. And they're saying here, not only is it prone, it's really prone. I mean, look at those things. That's more than fracking threat. I mean, that's huge. That's why I put it up there. I mean, it's brand new.
Oh, yeah, actually, the Heartland danger zones emerge on the new U.S. earthquake hazard map, just from the Science Insider. I'm looking at so we take that hazard map, and then you look at the going down again, the earthquakes over the last week worldwide and in the United States. My goodness, there's a lot of activity.
Yep. Well, you'll always see these little dots. These are like Richter 1s up to Richter 2, 2.5. The small dots are, but that shows you where the plate pressures are kind of being released with a bunch of little small cracking earthquakes, like glass on slow fracture or something. When you're bending a piece of glass. But as with glass, there's a certain point where the bending gets away and it cracks and breaks, and you have a mega quake. So that's why I watch these. And certainly you can see there's about a Richter 4 on the western side of the Juan de Fuca plate in the earthquakes for the United States, lower 48, and Hawaii and Alaska. They're all in there. And a bundle of earthquakes that are like significant threes around Oklahoma City, where the USGS has, surprise, surprise, said there's a great probability of earthquakes and ground movement in that area. So watch these things. Don't panic, but it just tells you the patterns forming. And from week to week, I put that up there just to see where we are compared to last week. And I think, if anything, at the moment, I'd say it's slowed down a little bit with the number of serious quakes on the West Coast. And that usually means the stress is not relieving, because the stress is always there. So that's not good either. But if you relate the mega quakes, the Richter 8s and above, to gravitational pressures exerted on the sun, and hence us in our position relative to Saturn and Jupiter when they're 9 degrees apart, relative to the sun, we're coming out of a period of extreme threat. And it'll be a few months before we enter into well, probably December, maybe one in September, where we will enter into another large earthquake pressure potential if you're using the gravitational model that I have there that I borrowed from RCA Corporation. Anyway, if you look at the world map rather than just the U.S. map, the world map shows earthquakes 4.5 and above. I think that's 4.5, yeah. And you'll see that you don't see all the little tiny fracture quakes that we saw in the close-up of the United States, but you do see that the western coast of South America, from Ecuador on down to Chile and Peru, it's had a number of quakes in the last 7 days that are significant on that plate edge, plus the ones that are out in the middle of the ocean. They were just west of the coastlines of South America. The coastline of South America, you see a bunch of them around the juncture of the Pacific plate, the Peruvian plate, and a fracture plate from Central America, right there close to where Easter Island was or is, and the Galapagos as well. So all that whole area there is under stress. And I think we're going to see a rearrangement of that small plate up near Central America, where the quakes are kind of surrounding it. There's a little red dot there to the right of it, which is a current earthquake, just occurred in the last couple of hours. But I think that plate there is going to suffer a lot of change in what is coming. The pressure release might make that plate border much more active. Other than that, you've seen earthquakes over in the Mediterranean around Greece, and Japan, of course, and aftershocks, the big one we had there recently. So just keep watching these things and try to see from week to week the patterns. When you don't see quakes, worry. And then when you see a bunch of little ones, think, okay, well, it's gradual releases. But if you don't see either of those, hang on, because something big is building. But right now, I think we're pretty good for a while.
For a while. I'm just curious, and I know you're not date setting, but in your experience, when you say for a while, are we talking this pattern, for the next couple of weeks, when you say for a while, or are we talking days? Or?
Well, you're always going to have earthquakes, and
right.
There are a number of things that can trigger some of the smaller ones. The larger ones usually occur in areas where you've had large buildup of tension, pressure, where plates are either trying to slide sideways against each other, or one is diving under the one next to it, subducting under it. And magma under these things is sticky like rubber. And just like rubber, if you're taking one sheet of rubber and bending it under another sheet of rubber and trying to make them slide next to each other, you'll notice that they catch and they grab, and one sheet of rubber or the other will bend under the pressure until it's got enough force to pop loose from the other sheet, and then you've got an earthquake. That's what we're trying to estimate. When you say when, how long, for the larger quakes, they follow a pattern that can sometimes be 50 years apart, sometimes 7 years, sometimes a few months, if our analysis is correct of the positions of the gas giants affecting the sun and hence the earth with gravitational effects. Now, while we're talking here, what I'm doing is I'm just bringing up the solar map on Solar System Scope for today to see where the Earth is. And I think we're still in an effective position for about, I'd say we'll get out of harm's way by the middle of June. And then the next period of influence I'm looking at will probably be into mid-February of next year. So there you go. That's a number of months, half a year or more away, where the geoaffective gravitational changes because of Jupiter and Saturn's position would possibly trigger large earthquakes if they're building, which they are, we know, on the West Coast here. So in between there may be some surprises, but it's after about middle of June, I'm seeing the Earth is basically away from Saturn and Jupiter on a line drawn from them straight to the sun. And the inner planets that might have some effect on us, they are not they're not really lining up to be any damage until we get to, as I say, around mid-February next year. I would encourage people to get this solar system scope program. It's a freebie to put on your computer, and it's a marvelous way to look at where the planets are for any date. And I've put on the show images page a subsection where you can click and see where major earthquakes have occurred in the past, where Saturn and Jupiter were either 180 degrees apart, opposite sides of the sun, and the Earth was close to one or the other of them, or they were at 90 degrees separation, Jupiter and Saturn, and the Earth was close to either one of them, approaching or just passing that line from that planet straight to the sun. I know I'm talking fast about all that, but that's that planetary alignments page there. I think on the show images page, you go on the third row, the right image.
Right.
Click on that; it'll take you to a number of those things where you can you don't even have to click on them. You can see the big picture, but you can just see with the naked eye and those little icons that quite frequently, when the planets are close to 90 degrees apart, Jupiter and Saturn, and the Earth is close to one of them, we've had Richter 8s or better. You can just do a quick glance at it. It's not always that way, but more so than the 180 degree, the opposition situation. The bottom row of these earthquakes that occurred 2004, 5, and 6. There was a Richter 9 in 2004 in Sumatra. Remember that with the tidal wave, and an 8.3 in Sumatra, Indonesia, the next year, which is probably a related aftershock. But at that time, both Jupiter and Saturn were 9 degrees apart, and the Earth was close to Saturn. It was approaching Saturn in the 2004 quake, and it was passing Jupiter in the 2005 quake, but they were still 9 degrees apart, those two gas giants. Now, this may be, we may prove later this is bad science, but, the stat studies done by RCA in the early 50s came up with the same idea that, when Earth is in a line between one of the gas giants and the sun, and the gas giants are at 9 degrees to each other, you're going to see quakes increase, particularly large quakes on the planet. So it's something worth studying, and certainly with this tool these people have made available, you can play along just like we're doing and try to figure out the pattern that these quakes occur in. I mean, some of them just defy the pattern entirely. Earth might be halfway between Saturn and Jupiter and still have a large earthquake, like nearly an 8, which one of them occurred in 2008 in Sichuan, China. And that one I can't explain. It's just, it doesn't fit the pattern, but it did happen. So anyway, you can follow along, guys, and make your own relationships and see if you can figure a better correlation.
Interesting. Yeah.
In the planetary alignments, there's been a lot of scientific threads on the internet on different scientific forums. I've been reading up on this that say that the alignments of the planets when they line up a certain way do have an effect on the crust of the Earth and the way it moves, and it has to do with the earthquakes as well as the moon and how it affects. Especially, they say that, I've been reading, at least this could be opinion, that more earthquakes happen during the full moon or around the days of the full moon than any other time. Is that accurate from what you've seen, from the planetary alignments to even the moon being in the right place or the right?
Or would that even be a causative factor? No.
The moon's gravitational field is the closest gravitational field that is likely to affect the Earth. Remember, the gas giants are way out there, and their influence on the sun, and hence the gravitational field of the Earth, and as it's close to the sun, their influence is at a great distance, and gravity does decrease like magnetism on the square of the distance. Now, Earth, in this program that I was telling you about, the solar system model, you can click on Earth and move it, and it moves the moon around it, so you can see where the moon is, relative to the surface of the Earth at any point in time. Now, being the closest, strongest gravitational field to us, believe it or not, the moon causes ripples or tides in not only the water, but in the land. It actually distorts the surface of the Earth as the Earth passes or rotates, relative to the moon. Now, moonquakes, on the Earth, it's been known for a long time that there's a correlation between quake frequency, numbers of them, and the position of the moon. But if there's no stress on the tectonic plates, if it's not where a subduction dome is hung or a transverse slide is hung, if they're not hung, then the likelihood that the moon's position will trigger an earthquake drops because there's not enough pressure forming along the areas that might be affected. But right now we're seeing a lot of affected areas, particularly in the Pacific borders to the Arc of Fire in the Pacific. More volcanoes, more earthquakes, bigger ones. So I think we are seeing an increase in pressures, the tectonic border pressures on the planet, and hence moon positions may affect it more than anything else because it is the closest one to the Earth. When you can show that program, you can tell it to make your model realistic size and orbit. And when you do that, you'll see that, Saturn is way the heck out there, and Jupiter is way the heck out there compared to where the Earth is. And their gravitational fields don't have as much of an effect on us directly, but because of their orbits and how that they're linked, like mechanically, gravitationally, and orbitally to the Sun, they shake the Sun, which in turn puts out coronal mass ejections and things that affect Earth. And gravity waves, variations in the gravitational field of the Sun and of the Earth. We know that we can have acoustic gravity waves in the Sun just, from the bombardment from the solar wind. So that's why I say that looking at that model, you can get a feel for how big things are, how far apart they are, and you'll see that the moon is probably the closest villain other than the Sun that we have to worry about triggering quakes as they form.
All right. A couple of people had emailed us during the week or subsequent to your last visit and prior to tonight, wanting to know your thoughts. And we discussed this before. Planet X, gravitational issues affect, Planet X, is it real? Now, I know we've had this talk before. What is it? That type of thing, Nibiru. You want to, for those people who have not heard your take on Nibiru, Planet X, this mystery planet, do you feel like revisiting that once again here, and if it could have any effect, if it does exist, have any effect on the gravitational pull and subsequently earthquakes and what have you?
Well, sometime back, I did get a copy of one of the questions that your listeners put in from Margot. I want to know if I'd listened to interviews of Gil Broussard regarding Planet X. And, I haven't, so I can't speak to that. But what I can say is this. If we're looking at either a dead, condensed star that's a part of a binary system with our sun, or if we're looking at just a large planet, there is something, and NASA's been aware of this, and Astronomers have been aware of this for a number of decades now, something out there that we haven't been able to see that is squashing the orbits, perturbing the orbits of Neptune and Uranus are the two that we're looking at the most. They're outer planets, and their orbits are not where they should be for the normal gravitational model for our solar system. I've seen that in my figures as well. So somewhere out there, something is causing those orbits from a great distance to compress, which means there is a significant mass hanging around out there that we haven't seen. Now, will it come next to the Earth? No, I don't think so. Will it orbit around the sun and come close to the sun? Possibly. There are two kinds of orbits. there's an orbit where a body, let's call it a large planetary body, can orbit the sun like normal comets do, where that planetary object swings way out there out of sight, maybe over 3,000 or 4,000 years is a complete cycle. So about every 2,000 years or every 4,000 years, it's going to be close to the sun as it swings around the backside of the sun and back out into deep space. Now that leg of its journey would be very fast relative to the rest of the 4,000-year or 3,600-year, whatever you want, orbit, because the gravitational acceleration causes it to whip right around the sun. But coming in that close to the sun doesn't mean that we'll even see it. I mean, until way late in the game, because it'll be traveling so fast that out of that 4,000-year orbit or 3,600-year orbit, that it might only be within the inner planets for 10 or 11 years total, 5 coming in, 5.5 coming in, and 5.5 going out, back to its slow orbit way out there in deep space. Why we haven't been able to see it is because its surface is not reflecting light. That's why some of them said it might be a collapsed star emitting infrared radiation, so that you have to have one of these expensive, very sensitive infrared telescopes to even see it if you knew where to look. And space is big out there. Trying to find an infrared object moving on your slides or your pictures you're taking is a very cumbersome and time-involved task to even find it. You've got to take sections of space that you can see from the Earth way out there and get very small chunks of it so that the resolution is good on your chip, so that you can catch something moving like that. And since it's moving so slow normally, we wouldn't catch it until it's in close to the system, which it may be now. But I don't think that it's going to be that kind of an orbit. I think that it'll have a longer elliptical orbit where the sun is very close to the center of its orbit. And if that's the case, then the closest it would come to Earth or to the sun, for that matter, would be, probably further than the orbit of Saturn or Jupiter. But no one that I've seen so far has actually given credible photographic evidence or digital evidence that they have detected such an object. Something is out there. We know that. And whether it's in close enough for us to even see or image, that's another issue. Look at the sun. Watch the sun's behavior, because I think that's the major effect on the Earth that this mystery planet will cause if it's in close. It'll affect the sun, which then affects us.
Okay, understood. And that covers quite a slew of questions that we got.
And Stan, I don't know if you got them, but I did email you. You
yes.
Just read one, so okay. But we had several questions.
And there was
about
another
Planet
one.
X. I didn't send you all of them.
Okay. Well, what are the other ones about Planet X?
This Jade Helm. This says, does Stan have information or knowledge of the warning that the real reason for Jade Helm 15 is connected to Planet X? There was John Moore. John Moore released a video, apparently, or some new information he had about the coming of Planet X. And also, I don't know if you've heard anything about this, but I also saw and have been talking about this, about the Jade Helm connection to a massive cyber event here in the USA. But we have a few that ask about the connections between Jade Helm. There's been talk about a possible asteroid strike. And I don't know, Nibiru to me, I don't know, from everything, or Planet X, Nibiru, whatever you want to call it, seems to be more of a metaphor in my mind. And I could be completely wrong, but there is, apparently NASA had to address, there's been a lot of talk of a possible asteroid hitting the Earth in September, and this is a connection to Jade Helm. And also, people are asking about Nibiru or Planet X, and if this is something that we should be concerned about. You just clarified a lot of that in your last answer.
Well, yeah, but Stan, do you want to comment on Jade Helm? I mean, I'm not sure we've spoken about it.
We have talked about it, but it's been a little while.
Well, let's say that I'm uncomfortable with it. I don't think that, for whatever reason, that are telling us all the details of it truthfully. I mean, if it's practiced for combat overseas in Afghanistan or some of the sand-covered countries and stuff, it doesn't seem to me that dealing with the cities in America, which are much more advanced and a different structure than in the Middle East, that would be a good test, for this Jade Helm operation. I mean, and why are they doing it with civilians that, in American homes, American customs, that worries me like it's a violation of, posse comitatus coming. I don't know. I just don't know that I've ever heard of such a large preparation for war in this manner, in American cities in the past. It's just a very unusual activity. We saw a bunch of the military vehicles there. I forget, there was like 4,000 personnel, all kinds of, heavy armored vehicles that were traveling on the highway through Pueblo West here. Last 2 weeks. They told us about it in advance, and we're not supposed to be in Jade Helm, but they moved a ton of soldiers and equipment down through Pueblo, down into the southern parts of Colorado to another Pinyon Canyon area where they can test and fire these things. It's just, we're not having Jade Helm, but we're having that. And when you're watching these military vehicles coming by with troops on it, with their headgear and night vision and guns hanging out the side of it, you're thinking, whoa, don't see that every day. So,
in Michigan,
Jade Helm is sudden. Sorry.
They've been having I don't know if you heard about this in Flint, Michigan, but the residents there got kind of a surprise after several of them reported loud explosions. And apparently they've been running urban warfare drills in Michigan also, especially in Flint, Michigan, using that town. And they didn't announce it to their citizens. And they started running these, black helicopters running low and other drills using explosives and just startled tons of residents out there. And then they had to announce that, yes, they've allowed the Army to come in and train on their some of their closed down public schools and other places where the military is able to do these urban warfare drills. It's very extensive, so much more than what they originally announced with the Jade Helm states that they started with. And Jade Helm isn't supposed to start till July 15th.
Yeah, ahead of the curve. America, our lifestyle is so much more technologically and advanced, than a lot of the places that we're supposed to be preparing these troops to go fight. Urban warfare here would be different, very different than over there. To begin with, I mean, a lot of people have got weapons and, defensive mechanisms and all kinds of stuff that the Middle East, average sod farmer over there is not going to have. I just think that this is preparing here is preparing for here, not over there.
I agree.
And that doesn't bode well for civilians. What is the cause? Is it because of, as you said, a major meteor or impact is going to occur later this year? Is it because of potential changes in the sun and hence creating famines and problems in the world community? I don't know. If that were the case, what are the Russians doing? What are the English doing? Are the Canadians and Australians doing likewise? Or why is it just us? You see?
Yeah, the Canadians actually are running a huge, extensive military training, urban warfare drills in their area. It's called Operation Maple Resolve, and I know it's running.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it's if I remember correctly, it's the largest Canadian military drill of the year, and this is something that's been going on yearly or annually. And it's called Maple Resolve. I'll have to check the dates again, but I think it runs pretty close. It might have started earlier, but it does run through the summer.
Yeah. So they've been doing it for longer than we have here?
Yeah.
Yeah. But nonetheless, I mean, the context of, or the, I don't know, Stan, I'm like you. Jade Helm, it just doesn't sit right with me. None of this sits right with me. And I don't know. This certainly is not intended for the Middle East. It's not intended for. I truly believe it's intended for this country, right where it's playing out. So, yeah.
Well, let's look at it this way, Doug. Look, let's suppose that for a brief second that our military, our government, is aware that we're going to be entering a war where we're going to be attacked on our shores here, on the American soil. This has not happened before, to any appreciable extent in World War I or World War II or the Spanish-American War. We have been insulated from that, and it's always been overseas that this has happened. Maybe they are training our troops to defend us against, invasion in our communities here, because they realize that this next war is going to be terrorist driven in our community, because there's so many of them already in the country, and that's how they're going to have to ferret them out. And so I'm playing devil's advocate here, saying that there may be a good reason that they're doing it here to protect us rather than to imprison us. There's two sides to that coin.
Yeah, exactly. And we can have a conversation about this, folks. I know the majority of people believe that this is nefarious, and I certainly think if it's not nefarious in its intent, then it certainly is a bad PR job by the military.
Anyway, like people talk about with the FEMA camps, you can look at that two ways also. People say it's basically like a Nazi death camp, or it will be, versus a protection of some sorts from whatever's going on in the country. But I mean, you have to look at things from all angles and consider the options.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, is this kitchen table intellectual discourse of current events, and by doing so, perhaps we might trigger something in someone's mind or memory, or hey, that we didn't think of, or so who knows? But
one thing that comes to mind, guys. When my dad was alive, we were certainly working together on trying to expose communist infiltration into the United States. And one of the things that I see standing back from all this is that the Jade Helm issue, the FEMA camp issue, the coffins that have been put aside, thousands of them here and there, the stories by Sorsha Fall, a known Russian disinformation agent that has leaked into our internet news services. All these things are turning us against our government, and not that I think our government is perfect by any means, but it too has been infiltrated. But what we're talking about is making the American people lose faith in the military, in their government, all levels of the government, and it is demoralizing. This is cyber warfare, at its best. Not to say that some of these things aren't, really aimed at causing us grief, but we have to be like a courtroom. The defense, and the prosecution. We have to hear both sides of it and make up our mind. But bear in mind, They have been trying for decades to, and successfully, to break down the American spirit, and the American faith, and the American dream, and in the Bible and in Christianity. So anything that makes you throw stones at the government and not trust them, be cautious about that. That's all I'm saying.
If I can ask you, you brought this up about your dad and about the communist infiltration, post World War II communist infiltration in the McCarthy era, and people often refer to that McCarthy era. Well, they're wrong. I mean, many people are wrong when they say McCarthyism. It's often used as this. It's kind of like they'll equate it with the birther issue. McCarthyism is like racism, when in fact McCarthy, based on my research, was correct. And maybe the delivery was bad. Maybe he had a PR problem himself, but the information was right. As far as I can tell, your experience with the McCarthy hearings, the Tidings panel, the House Un-American Activities Committee, all separate things, by the way.
Well, they're all part of a thrust to, make America collapse within, from a fifth columnist point of view, as they used to say in the old days. They are traitors within our midst, and they've been hitting our education facilities from our pastors, preachers, right into our school systems, and then into our legal system and the Supreme Court and various judicial courts around the country. We could see this at the time, and I've met at least one, what we called a ringer, who got into one of my dad's organizations, and he was a communist. And we did catch him, and McCarthy was right. They are in amongst us and infiltrated us, long before terrorists came into the picture at a high level. And the objective would be to weaken the United States' resolve and support of its government to the point that the people could be convinced to accept a new government in a semi-peaceful overthrow of the U.S. government by judicial processes that were in place from the time of the Constitution being drafted. They are real, and McCarthy, he got a bit exuberant, I think, zealous in his persecution, of the likely suspects in Hollywood, and certainly Hollywood has been a big factor in bending our minds to the perverse ways of this world. They just made things and made movies that turned people's minds away from the good book and from the logical order of things that our founding fathers proposed for the country. It is real. And McCarthy just was probably overzealous in his prosecution of the concept to catch as many of them as he could to try to stop it. My dad, I remember him just shaking his head and getting red in the face at times, reading the newspaper, seeing signs of erosion in the Constitution at that time, 30, 40 years ago. And having met with a number of people, that my dad knew, with the Hunt brothers, and H.L. Hunt in Dallas, and with General Walker, behind the scenes you can see what they're fighting. And today it is evident to everyone. Back then it wasn't. We were really the outcasts of the society here, because we were warning, danger, danger, Will Robinson, the commies are here, and they're saying, oh, you're another McCarthy nut. Mm-hmm. And it's just because they didn't bother to get involved in the research themselves. My dad, being an attorney, was, very judicious in the way he got his information and cross-checked his facts. So, it just overzealous, I think, in McCarthy's part. But the problem was there, and it's now even greater.
Yeah. Well, M. Stanton Evans wrote the book Blacklisted by History, which really is not an afternoon read. I mean, it's a huge book, and I've been reading that book off and on now for a couple of years and referencing it. I was surprised to learn, Stan, that a lot of the dossiers of the McCarthy investigations, when M. Stanton Evans, back in the mid and late 90s, early 2000s, when he went to the archives to research the paperwork, the archives were plundered. In other words, the article or the dossiers were stolen. The information wasn't there that was supposed to be there. Newspapers were expunged. The articles from newspapers were expunged. Public libraries, in fact, one in West Virginia, I think it was the Wheeling, West Virginia Public Library, and the newspaper where McCarthy gave one of his speeches, totally gone. I mean, and we're not talking about something that happened decades ago or 50 years ago. We're talking about something the expunging of the information took place in the 90s. I just thought it was just amazing to see, even today, what's going on in the. I probably didn't make myself clear, or as clear as I should have been, but there's still this intentional sabotage of the truth, even today. So it's, and we know the one world order system is going to be communist in nature, right? I mean, that's so.
They're probably not going to call it that. They'll have a new social order tag, some name they'll put on it, but it's socialism, kind of bordering on communism and capitalism. It's supposed to take the good points of communism and capitalism and form a synthesis out of those two, a new world order. And that's been the communist doctrine from the time it began. Was you have a thesis, and then you have the antithesis of that thesis, and you have them combat each other, and then develop a synthesis from the thesis and the antithesis. And that's what they're doing. One is one is capitalism, one is communism, and somewhere in between becomes a social order where everyone gets a fair shake, and no tall poppies out there, and that's where we're headed.
Interesting choice of words there, no tall poppies.
We have went over our time for the hour. Is there anything you want to touch on, Stan, before we let you go?
Let me just check and see. One of your listeners asked about an asteroid coming in. They just discovered it, 2015 LF. And it came
I think this is the one
halfway
between the moon and the Earth right now?
Yeah, halfway between the moon and the Earth. And they just discovered it. Now, how can it be that NASA can be so sure we're not going to get hit by something in September because they know everything? No, they can't. This tells you right now. And if you've been watching the news over the last several years, we've had post-near-miss things announced in the press saying, after it's happened, oh, by the way, we didn't know that was coming. Well, okay. So how can you be so sure you've got everything under control when there are at least 5,000 other objects that are dangerous to the Earth, known to be out orbiting somewhere between the asteroid belts and Venus and Earth in between somewhere? Give me a break. They haven't been able to track them all.
Yeah, I mean,
not the most comforting thought.
I've seen a few stories just in the last 6 months where they say, Earth avoided a disaster, an asteroid that wasn't charted, past Earth, just barely missing it or narrowly missing it.
Didn't see that one coming. Bang. Oh, well.
Well, yeah, I mean, when was it? It was last year or in 2013. Which one was it? When was that meteor over Russia? The Chelyabinsk.
Yeah, that was 2013, I believe.
Yeah, February 2013. Here it is. That was unexpected as well. And that would have wiped out a major city had it hit a city. It did enough damage as it was. But, maybe it's an effort to keep people calm and not to worry when you say, look, there's nothing coming. We've got nothing plotted. But if you go visit Space, Watch, which Holly and I have done, Space Command Watch here, you realize that they know by mass count that there are things out there, but they don't know where they are. And they don't have the budget to track them all. So we're going to get a surprise, I'm sure.
Well, bang. What was that? Yeah, I got you. Well, Stan, very good. We really appreciate your time and certainly the information that you impart on a weekly basis. God bless you, my friend. And
thank you.
My word, a lot of stuff going on, although relatively quiet in the earthquake front, which not bad.
Well,
okay.
Well, we'll just keep our eyes open. I've been getting some emails from some of our listeners out there about various issues that they've addressed as far as where the space station is it where it should be, and are they moving it to a safer place? questions about Planet X and the NBC affiliate video of Nibiru that they allegedly captured on camera by accident. I've analyzed that film. It took me, several hours to do it, and I found that there was an inset video into that stuff. I don't know who did it or whether NBC knew about it, but it, I could tell the difference in the framing and in the artifacts that are formed by compression. That planet Nibiru that they saw wasn't there. But anyway, I do address these things. People send them in, and I do my best to be fair about the analysis of it as best I can, and tell them, yay or nay, which, I appreciate, because I can't be everywhere and know, what all these people are asking about. So I do appreciate when they send in something that's anomalous and say, what do you think? So,
right.
Thank you
Very
for that,
good.
guys.
All right,
Until next week.
Well, yeah. And give Holly a hug, and of course the four-legged occupants as well. Give them a big slobbering kiss, or let them do that. And until next week, we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Talk soon.
All right, guys. Till next week. Lord bless you.
God bless you too, Stan. Have a great night.
Night.
All right. That was Stan Deyo from StanDeyo.com, our guest every Tuesday in hour number 2. Him and Holly do great work in their book, Dare to Prepare. And that's Holly's book, and The Cosmic Conspiracy is Stan's book, and I recommend those two for everybody's library who can get them. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back on the other side and take the phone calls from our listeners. Give us a call at 661-244-9839 if you want to weigh in on anything we talked about first, second hour, yesterday, or whatever, third and final hour on this Tuesday, June 9th edition
or
of
Thursday or Wednesday.
Just a quick note. Tomorrow, Dr. Michael Lake, the author of the Shinar Directive, will be joining us live for the show tomorrow. That's Dr. Michael Lake. He's been a guest once before. Fantastic guest. We've been playing a soundbite clip from that show during the commercials for a while, since his last appearance.
Yeah, a lot of great response from that. And if you haven't heard him before, please set your calendar to listen tomorrow night, because it's going to be a fabulous program.
Yeah, and we do have a lot of calls.
Let's get to them.
And we're going to take calls for the remainder of the show. Let's start with area code 509. 509, we're coming to you first. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
I've said this before, and say, okay, here's 50 people in the auditorium, people, and if somebody was...
All right. Sounds like they were listening in one ear to the show and another ear to something else.
No, I'm not sure if that was our show.
No, I don't think it was. We're going to go next to 724. 724. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. 724. All right.
It's me, guys. Sorry.
Oh,
it's Jen.
Okay.
Hey,
Hi.
I'm going to take up too much time with you guys because I know there's other callers. I sent an email to you guys regarding something. I had an interview with a radio station in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Right.
And they have set up a barter program, and I don't know if you could pass it along to John, HH and HH Connections. This sounds exactly something that he might be interested in trying to organize. Without going into too much detail, people who are professionals, like I was in the medical field. I'm sure there's like doctors, nurses, but they trade services within this community, okay? And it's a membership only. It's secured, and you accumulate barter dollars, and people can get their hair cut with barter dollars. It's just, this is what people have resorted to in order to pay for service without taking cash out of their pocket, without having to, use your credit cards or use money. I think people have to offer the services. They have to have a professional title, like a hair cutting, beautician, to lawn services, any services that would be worth trading for barter dollars, and they have a ranking system for how much the retail value of that service. And so what I was thinking is anyway, that would be something that people can do in a regional way or in, national if they want to network that way. But since H&H Connections was set up this way, it made too much sense. And I was hoping that, I could maybe elaborate, but I don't want to take up too much time.
No, Jen, what we did, and I've already sent this off to John. He probably hasn't seen it yet. I understand what you're talking about, and it is something that as time progresses and as things get worse in terms of, as they criminalize cash, continue to do that, and as they have an oversight of all of our financial transactions, we're going to have to do things like this.
Actually, it's legal. It's actually legal because the IRS actually does not count against. It doesn't count against you because you're not using physical cash and you're not using credit cards. You're just basically bartering services. But it is actually something that's actually legal. Believe it or not, you can do this,
and we understand
you don't have to help. Okay.
Right, and that's what we're saying, though, because more people are going to turn to systems like this and methods like this to avoid being made criminals by not using cash or wanting to use cash and not being able to. So this is a good system. I've heard about it.
Okay, that's all I wanted to pass along to you guys. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. All right, Jen.
Have a good night. Thanks for the call.
In fact, Joe, I sent this because barter is going to have a place as the system devolves and crashes and breaks down. Bartering is going to be pretty important, and organized bartering is what she's referring to.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Let's move along. 805 or 850 area code 850. We're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann report. 850.
I'm wondering if we're having a problem with our board here.
I'll come back to you, caller. Area code 786. 786. You're up next. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann report.
Good evening, Doug and Joe. God bless you guys. How you doing tonight?
Good.
Hey, I'd gotten through last week, and so I know I can't take up too much time because you always want to get some new callers in and stuff. What I was calling about tonight, first of all, I want to comment. I don't know if I didn't hear you say it, but then I was had some activity going on, and it got kind of loud, so I didn't hear. When y'all were talking about McCarthy, did you guys mention that the reason why the media and the government turned on McCarthy was because not because he was going after the communists, but that he had found out that basically the Kremlin was being run out of the Pentagon, and after he kind of decided, after he figured that out, that's when they came down on him and exposed his weakness of alcoholism and basically persecuted him at that point. Did y'all bring that up, or have y'all talked about that before?
No, we didn't address that directly. No, and you might want to expand upon that just a tad for a few moments here, because that's an important aspect of McCarthy, of his findings. Now, folks have to understand, okay, and I've seen this mistake made many times. McCarthy was a senator, okay? He was not part of the House Un-American Activities Committee, and I've seen authors in books. I've found mistakes in books where I don't know who checks these facts, but they're two separate entities, two separate initiatives. But anyway, a lot of things were ascribed to McCarthy that were not true. Now, you mentioned about the Russian or the communist Russian influence, or explain that to listeners. So you could probably be a little bit more articulate than I can tonight. So go ahead and explain if you want to take a minute or so and explain what was going on.
Well, yeah, basically, as we all know, it basically started with the Rothschilds and the Bank of England funding, Lenin to go to Russia from England to start the Red Revolution, and since we do know already that also Brown Brother Harriman, which Prescott Bush was on the board of, and he was a senator that was one vote shy of being taken out of the Senate right after World War II for treason, and was saved by one vote. Of course, that's the grandfather of George W. and
right.
the father of H.W. But from those connections, of course, with the international banks, which we all know are the bad guys, that's the elite. That the money was funded by the West to start communism, and basically the strings were never cut, and it was transferred, of course, after World War II from MI6 over to CIA and the Defense Intelligence Network of the Pentagon, and that basically the Cold War was a elaborate scheme by the international elite to give an excuse, put the fear in the people on both sides to build up the weaponry and to get the trillions of dollars to put into the military-industrial complex. They had to have the boogeyman, and that was the boogeyman that was created. And, at certain levels, they war with each other, but at the top it was controlled basically out of the Pentagon. From what I understand, there was always the back channels with the Kremlin. I'm trying to think of the exact, but they always got up to a point, and there was always the back channel to pull it back and just to get whatever initiative through that they wanted to at the time. I mean, it was this obvious that when Europe was divided, there was no reason to give Russia any part of Europe, but they went ahead and did it anyway. There was no reason. They didn't have to do it at that point. And so that's basically what I was wanting to say about McCarthy, is that apparently he found that out, because where I heard it from, and I can't remember the author's name, so I was not as prepared to talk about that as possible. I was just going to throw that
maybe in. It might have been Michael Farquhar, I believe. I'm guessing, but okay.
Yeah, he was on Alex Jones' show like about a year ago, and it was brought up about it. But the main reason why I called was that I was just wanting to ask you guys, and I sent an email, and I also sent it to Steve, and I was kind of wanting to just ask you guys, I've brought this up before in past calls, and, it's kind of been dismissed, kind of out of hand, not by you guys as such, but almost everybody dismisses it in the prophecy circles. But in Book of Revelations, starting with chapter 13, the first beast to arise is out of the sea, and that's the Antichrist, because the second beast arises out of the earth, and that's a false prophet, that makes people worship the first beast. And when I hear Tom Horn, so maybe y'all can clarify this for me, but when I hear Tom Horn and Chris Putnam and a few others, start saying that, hey, Pope Francis, which he just did another thing today, this week about basically, allowing Muslim prayers now and stuff, which, we all know that Catholic Church, unfortunately, at a lot of levels is apostate, and I hope I won't offend any listeners, but they do a lot of things that are apostate. But, now allowing Muslim prayers in, of course, there's been some of the leaders of the evangelical movement like Joel Osteen and several others that have gone over to visit about talking about getting closer together. And, Tom Horn has basically come out and said, because I get the newsletter from Skywatch, basically he's saying that Pope Francis is, for all intents and purposes, he is the false prophet and the last pope. And I agree with him. I'm glad that he's taken, kind of stuck his neck out on that. Him and Mr. Putnam stuck their neck out on that. But if that's the case, and in Revelations that the Antichrist actually rises before Pope Francis, and here's what I'm getting down to, the bottom line, and maybe it's talked about behind the scenes, but the only person that's fitting several of the prophetic descriptions, and he showed up before Pope Francis and rose to power, was Barack Hussein Obama. And it's like nobody wants to come out and say, you don't have to say, emphatically he is it, but I'm not really hearing anybody in the prophecy circles saying that this guy has a good chance of being the Antichrist. He exhibits a lot of the characteristics described in Daniel and in the book of Revelations. And to me, with all of just the side things that have happened, Time and Newsweek deified him from the beginning, putting halos around him, making him in the pose of Jesus. All sorts of deification covers on those progressive rags, and MSNBC worships him. Unfortunately, the majority of the black population, I think, because of their, he was the first quote unquote black president. They just kind of naturally, wanted to back him, and I can understand that to a degree. But there were songs like the kids sang to Hitler, praise songs that they were having school kids. Deceit or craft prospers in his hand. That's one of the descriptions in Daniel. He's a complete liar, but he's getting away with everything. He came in peaceably, and the Nobel Committee, 3 months into his presidency, I think 3 or 4 months in, gave him a Nobel Peace Prize that seemed like, hey, that kind of puts an exclamation point on the fact that the Antichrist comes in peaceably, kind of with getting a Peace Prize. He came in before Pope Francis, and if Pope Francis is the false prophet, Obama is the only one that could qualify. He's over a military that pretty much who could stand against the United States, and that says who can stand against and make war against the beast, and Pope Francis and Obama are walking in lockstep on several agendas, especially UN Agenda 21 and the climate change, and they seem to be really being they seem to kind of accentuate each other and kind of lift each other up. It's not painfully obvious yet how close the ties they have, but they're both communists, they're both Marxists, they both got that kind of ideology, and it just seems like they're in sync. And I'll stop now with my rant, and I want to hear what y'all have to say and see what's going on here, because he seems to be a real good candidate right now.
Well, you're right, especially with the Pope getting into this, UN climate change argument or debate, along with Obama. And, we could go back and forth on the pros and cons on, is this what you're talking about? Could Obama be the Antichrist figure that's described in the Bible? But I think there's a lot more of what is associated with the Antichrist that he does not fit. But, to a point that you made, as a forerunner, though, I do agree that, the spirit of the Antichrist is there, but I just don't know if he would qualify as, with all the prophecies pertaining to what the Antichrist is. As far as the Pope being the false prophet, that's yet to be seen. He's obviously not doing the Lord a service by coming out and he's all over the place with abortion and the homosexual agenda. You see comments on both sides of the aisle here and there, but he also came out and said that he doesn't believe his reign as Pope would last 2 to 3 years, not too near past here. And there's a lot up for debate there. Well, what are you jumping in for there? What do you got there?
Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I want to say this. Pastor David Langford wrote Revelation 13 Revealed. All right, now I've got a copy of this, and it's the book itself is. Let me just check here. It's an easy read. It's 123 pages long. Okay, and he talks about the second beast, the false prophet.
One thing about the Antichrist, I was going to mention this, not to interrupt you, Dad.
No, go ahead.
In the Bible, it says he comes from a small people, which could apply, and at the same time, I believe that is more application to where he's from, and he represents that. And the origins of Obama are still really unknown, but that just off the top of my head, that's one thing. And also, the tribe of Dan is talked about in the Bible in relation to the Antichrist. Now, we don't know all the lineage of Obama and where that line and tribe goes and comes from, but well, that's another point.
Okay, let me just back up here because I want to make mention of this. According to Pastor David Langford on page 98 of his book, he writes flat out, he says, I believe that the false prophet is the Pope of the Catholic Church, and he details why. Now, if I don't want to be, and if this offends Catholics, not just hold on a minute here, okay? Because we're talking about a hierarchy far beyond the average person who sits in a pew in the Catholic Church, and that most Catholics, all of us are deceived at some level. Okay, so we're talking about deception, not complicity. So, but that's number one. And of course, he also talks about the second beast, in addition to the false prophet, and the man, the son of perdition. I'm not going to get into all of this. He does not say, okay, this is who I believe the Antichrist is, simply because I'm trying to find the statement in here. He writes it's